There is a very interesting hadith in which the Prophet ﷺ said that Qiyamah will not come until you Muslims will not fight with such people whose faces will be red, their noses will be flat, their eyes will be small, and their faces will be flat like a shield, and their shoes will be made of hair. Now, the Prophet ﷺ after this hadith conquered the whole of Arabia, and the empire of Muslims had spread all over Arabia. After which, in the 30 years of Khilafat Rashida, under the Khilafat of Abu Bakr, Umar, Usman and Ali, Muslims for the first time left Arabia and made the biggest empire in the history of mankind. And for the first time, Muslims became the superpower of the world. But only after 30 years of rule. Khilafat Rashida was abolished, and Khilafat came under the control of a family called Banu Umayyah, who ruled this empire of Muslims for 90 years and increased it from the size of Rashidun Khilafat to this size. Umayyad Khilafat had conquered such a big area, but Banu Umayyah's Khilafat had a very big problem. That this Khilafat belonged only to the Arabs, in which non-Arabs had no status, to the extent that, in spite of such a big empire, Arabs were always less than the rest of the people, and it was impossible to marry a non-Arab to an Arab. In Banu Umayyah's government, all the posts were only with the Arabs. It was like today in UAE and Saudi, Pakistanis and Indians are treated. Fed up with all this, Umayyad Khilafat was rebelled against their country, and another family, Abbasids, took care of Khilafat, who was the son of the uncle of the Prophet, Hazrat Abbas. Now, during the time of Abbasids, the power of Muslims reached its peak, which is known as the Islamic Golden Age in the West, when Baghdad, the capital of Abbasid Khilafat, was the most powerful city in the world. Along with being the superpower of the world, Abbasid Khilafat did a very unique thing. They built the world's largest library in their capital Baghdad, which was called the House of Wisdom. This library was filled with the best books, stories, and poetry of the world, because of which all the intellectuals, scientists, poets, artists left their areas and started gathering here in this city. Abbasid Khilafat made a portion of this House of Wisdom for translation, so that people can sit here and translate the writings of the great people of the world in Arabic. When this translation started, then slowly the Arabic language became the most powerful language in the world, just like it is the English language today. Abbasid Khilafat, for the first time, started funding scientists to do their research, because of which the world's great Muslim scientists came forward, like the head of this House of Wisdom in Baghdad, whose name was Al-Khwarizmi, who introduced algebra. He was one of the greatest mathematicians of all time, a Muslim who worked in the golden age of Islam, who still holds great importance in the science of the world. Abbasid Khilafat, along with science, arts also came forward. In this era, a book like Al-Falail Walail was written, in which such stories were written on which movies are still made in Hollywood. For example, Aladdin, Ali Baba, and Sinbad. In short, Muslims were the superpowers of the world, and there was no one in the world to challenge them. But whenever in history an empire reaches this level, then there is only one way ahead: decline. Before the Abbasids, it was Umayyad Khilafat, as we know that it was only the Khilafat of the Arabs. But Abbasid Khilafat was completely opposite to Umayyad, meaning in the era of this Khilafat, people from every corner of the empire were included in the government: Persians, Turks, Greeks, all. And one Abbasid Khalifa made a very powerful army of the Turks called Seljuk. This army became so strong that instead of strengthening the Abbasid Khilafat, it took all the control of the Khilafat in its own hands, after which the Khalifa was just a Khalifa, and all the power of the country was with the Seljuk army. It is like today a country's prime minister is just a prime minister by name, and all the power of the country is with someone else. After the control of the Seljuk army, because of this army, the Abbasid Khilafat became weak. In this huge empire of the Abbasids, there were revolts everywhere, and because of this huge empire, it was divided into small parts. Because of this, for the first time, Palestine was taken away from the hands of the Muslims. Many years before this, when Umar was conquering all these areas, he also conquered the holiest city of the Christians, Jerusalem. After that, for the next 450 years, no one had the courage to take Palestine from the Muslims. But when the Abbasid Khilafat became weak, and the Muslims were divided into very small parts, then the Christians of Europe took full advantage of this time and started a very big war, the Crusades, to free Palestine from the hands of the Muslims. Finally, in 1099, after conquering Palestine and Jerusalem, thousands of Muslims, men, women, and children, were martyred, and their houses were set on fire. In one book, it is even written that the Crusaders took away their children from the Muslim mothers and threw them down from big buildings. The Muslims ran away from the Crusaders and tried to hide in houses and mosques. But the Crusaders, instead of taking them out, set their houses on fire, which caused thousands of Muslims to burn to ashes. If you think, how can anyone be so cruel? Then even today in Palestine, this is exactly what is happening. A few Muslims got out of there, and these Muslims took the old Quran with them, which was written in the time of Hazrat Usman. Despite all this cruelty, there was no leader in the world who could conquer Palestine again. But only 40 years after losing Palestine, a common soldier in Iraq, Yusuf Salahuddin Ayyubi, was born in the house of Salahuddin Ayyub. At the age of 25, he left Iraq with his uncle and went to Egypt. And after a long struggle, he became the king of Egypt. When Salahuddin Ayyubi was going to become the king of Egypt, far away from here in Mongolia, in a small village, in the house of the leader of a small tribe, a child was born whose name was Temujin, later known as Genghis Khan. Salahuddin and Genghis Khan were alive in the same era. One had to take the Muslims back to glory, and the other had to destroy the Muslims, which no one had done before. After losing Palestine, and especially Jerusalem, there was no strong leader of the Muslims. But during this time, the most powerful role of the Muslims was played by the ulama. Because before this, the Muslims who were always fighting each other and were divided into many sects, some great scholars started uniting them on one goal, that at any cost, we have to conquer Palestine again. And in the next many years, in the minds of the young population of the Muslim kingdoms, this thought was well settled. But still, there was no leader who could unite the Muslims and attack the Christians. Finally, after Salahuddin Ayyubi became the Sultan of Egypt, he made a deal with a group of Christians that for the next 10 years there will be complete peace and we will not attack each other. Almost like the Treaty of Hudaybiyah. After using these 10 years, Salahuddin Ayyubi started uniting the Muslims. And finally, after conquering this whole area, Salahuddin Ayyubi became the most powerful Muslim king, and all the Muslims to conquer Palestine started looking towards Salahuddin Ayyubi. Finally, Salahuddin Ayyubi attacked the Crusaders, and in the year 1192, he conquered Jerusalem and secured it. 1192 was a very important year because this year, on one hand, Salahuddin Ayyubi achieved such a great victory, and on the other hand, Shahabuddin Ghori attacked India and conquered it, and also laid the foundation of the Delhi Sultanate. Almost 100 years later, Muslims finally started getting a little stable again, and the lost respect of the Muslims also started returning. But now, when the Muslims had got a little success, then 600 years ago, the time had come to fulfill the prophecy. Far away from all this, Genghis Khan had united Mongolia and was increasing his power everywhere. Genghis Khan's real name was Temujin, and his father was the leader of a small tribe of Mongolia. But in the childhood of Temujin, another tribe secretly poisoned his father and killed him, after which Temujin and his entire family lived a very hard life. It is said that Temujin even became a slave of someone. But then Temujin finally came back to Mongolia, united his tribe, and slowly his Mongol empire started growing and became so big that the Mongolians gave Temujin a very big title, Genghis Khan, which means the biggest king. The name Khan was also used in Turkish before, but because of Genghis Khan, this name became famous all over the world. According to some surveys today, there are 250 million people in the world whose name is Khan, like Shah Rukh Khan, Amir Khan, and of course Imran Khan. If we look at Mongolia even today, it is a very poor and common country, and at that time it was much weaker than this. That is why even after the formation of Genghis Khan's empire, Mongolia's neighbor China did not take it seriously. But in the coming few years, Genghis Khan conquered China's capital Beijing, and for the first time, people saw how cruel Genghis Khan was. We have all heard the stories that he used to cut people's heads and make pyramids. But this cruelty was not a hobby of Genghis Khan. He took great advantage of this cruelty. He divided his entire army into groups of 10 people, then 10 to 100, and then 100 to 1,000, and 1,000 to 10,000 groups. Now Genghis Khan had made a rule for his army that in every group of 10 people, if one person leaves the war, then the other 9 people of his group will be beheaded, due to which the soldiers of Genghis Khan's army never let each other run away from the war. And whoever tried to run away, his own army used to kill him. Apart from this, Genghis Khan made such a system of justice that if anyone in his empire steals someone else's horse and gets caught, he will have to return 10 horses instead of that one. And if he could not return, then not only him, but his entire family, children, wife, parents, would all be killed. This is how Genghis Khan's cruel empire started to spread very fast. And finally, an empire of Muslims collided with Khwarizm. Initially, Genghis Khan had no intention to fight with Muslims. That's why he sent a delegation to the king of Khwarizm with the message of friendship. But the king of Khwarizm arrested all those people, due to which, to free them, Genghis Khan sent his ambassador to the king, but the king beheaded the ambassador. Now this is a very big thing. To kill an ambassador or messenger is a big crime in Islam and in every law of the world. When Genghis Khan came to know about this in Mongolia, he got very angry, and now it was a question of his respect. So he sent his biggest army, an army of 100,000, towards Khwarizm. And here, the next 100 years of war between Muslims and Mongols started. Genghis Khan quickly destroyed the entire empire of Khwarizm, and after conquering every city, he beheaded the entire population and made their pyramids, so that the whole world gets to know that it is not easy to get rid of Genghis Khan. Before the attack of Genghis Khan, the Khwarizm Empire, which today has areas like Afghanistan, Uzbekistan, Tajikistan, had a population of 20,000. After the attack of Genghis Khan, the population of Khwarizm was only 200,000, which means that Genghis Khan killed 1.8 million Muslims. After conquering these areas, one day Genghis Khan gathered all the Muslims in a mosque and then climbed on the pillar and said to all the Muslims that I have been sent by your Lord to punish you. After this, the Mongolian Empire got even bigger and conquered Russia. But at the same time, Genghis Khan died in Mongolia. After him, his son Ugudai became the king, and he divided his entire empire among his sons. But even after Genghis Khan's death, the Mongolian Empire spread everywhere. Many years later, Genghis Khan's grandson Hulegu Khan created another big army and took it to Baghdad, which was the capital of Abbasid Caliphate, the biggest and most powerful city. Now it should have been that the Muslims of that time fought with the Mongols, but the Muslims of that time were divided into so many sects that they were more interested in debates. Hulegu Khan surrounded Baghdad, and then in 1258, he snatched Baghdad from the Muslims and killed the Caliph of the Muslims, after which the Abbasid Caliphate, after ruling for 500 years, ended forever. After conquering Baghdad, Hulegu Khan's army shed so much blood that it is said the color of the river of Baghdad was completely red due to the blood of the Muslims for many days. After the red color, the color of the Euphrates River became black because Hulegu Khan burnt all the books of the world's largest library and threw them into the river, due to which the color of the river was black for many months. There has never been such a harsh time on the Muslims in history. Not only the Muslims, but also the holiest sides of Islam were in danger. Because after the Abbasid Caliphate, now there was only one more kingdom in front of the Mongols, the Mamluk Sultanate. If they had defeated it, then the control of Mecca and Medina would have gone to the Mongols, and they would have 100% destroyed the Kaaba in Mecca. But this did not happen. When the Mongols conquered Baghdad, then the Mamluk Sultan of Egypt decided to fight the Mongols with his general Baburs. Everyone tried to explain to the Sultan that fighting the Mongols is impossible, because the people of that time and some great scholars had also said that these Mongols are the real Yajuj Majuj, and that the doomsday was coming, so it was impossible to win. But still, the Sultan and his general Baburs started to gather an army against the Mongols. During this time, the brother of Hulegu Khan, who was the king of the Mongol Empire, was killed. So Hulegu Khan left with his big army and left a small army behind. Finally, in Palestine, at the place of Ain Jalut, the army of the Mongols and the Muslims faced each other. This Ain Jalut area is in Palestine, and it is called Ain Jalut because, according to the Jews, this is the exact place where thousands of years ago Dawood, A.S., had defeated a great warrior Jalut. And again, after thousands of years, exactly the same happened, that the weak Muslims defeated the great Mongol Empire for the first time and stopped the expansion of the Mongol Empire forever. This was the war between the Mongols and the Muslims, which was told by the Prophet many years ago, which ended with the Ain Jalut War. But still, a big part of the Muslim world was under the control of the Mongols, and no one could challenge them. Then slowly, the same Mongolian rulers started studying Islam, and finally, they were so impressed that the entire Mongolian family, which was living in these areas, became Muslims, and all these areas were again under the control of Islam. If you take the names of all the children of Genghis Khan, then all these names were Mongolian, like Ogadai, Jochi, Hulegu. But slowly their names started becoming Muslim, like Muhammad, Timur, Yunus, and Babur. Because the Mongol Empire, which ruled India for many years, was one of the children of Genghis Khan. Hazrat Umar and Genghis Khan had one thing in common. that they had made the biggest and most powerful empire of their time. But there was a big difference. That today Genghis Khan is only known as a tyrant, but the whole world considers Hazrat Umar as a great leader. If you enjoyed this video, please like, comment, and subscribe to our channel. Your support helps us reach more people and share these beautiful stories. See you in the next video.